Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas.
Applewood and Brescia taste good to me, and to get a bit silly around a piece of Philly. What could be better? The vintage cheddar. Relieve that pressure with a nice bit of Cheshire. Cheesy Christmas. We're gonna have a cheesy Christmas. We're celebrating cheeses this year. If you dare go camembert, I'm enthralled to Emmental. Go and get a pack of feta. I'm a Gorgonzola rock and roll.
Yeah, if that's not a hint, I don't know what is. If you're listening to this on the first day it comes out here at the Upland Nation podcast, you know there's 24 and a half days of shopping left before Christmas. So here's your warning. And speaking of warnings, the entire podcast is about Christmas gifts for you, your hunting buddies, and of course your dog. It's all coming up right here. I'm Scott Linden. Thank you so much for joining me with a special edition of the Upland Nation podcast. We're going to do all things Christmas, at least from a gifting standpoint. Yeah, it's been a weird year, and I understand every bit of that, but we still have things to look forward to, and one of them is this wonderful time of year, as the song goes. We're here in the Cabela's podcast studio. Lots to talk about. On top of all the gift ideas for you, the Handle It segment is about keeping your dog fueled on a multi-day hunt, as I answer a question I got from a panicked friend of mine just last night. This Land is Your Land, your public access feature. We'll talk about some of the unconventional tactics I've used to find birds on hard-hunted ground. And our reader poll, we're going to the Upland Nation Index, which, by the way, will be coming up soon. What are the key issues facing our sport? All of that, plus your own hunting reports from the past weekend, and I'll share some of the misery of mine, all coming up right about now. Yeah, we got another tradition in the making here. This is the second year in a row I've met a good friend of mine I'll just call it Northeast Oregon, on some private ground that he has access to. My first private ground hunt of the year, in fact. Which says a lot about how the year's going. It's been spectacular in so many ways, discovering so many places. But anyway, this is all about the camaraderie. I was pulling together another trip with another friend, just a day trip, when this first friend, Mark, said, hey, come on up here. It'll be the first day I've been to this place all season. And yeah, your friend's welcome too. So Bruce and I pungled on up to that part of the country and met Mark, and we explored a lot of ground. It's still very dry up there. There'd been some precipitation, but it hadn't yielded any green growth to speak of, so the chukars were few and far between. But we had a lot of great company. 4 dogs on the ground of 3 different breeds, and that was interesting. 4 different breeds, now that I think about it. I got to look over the hill at that white dog with the long tail. Anyway, had a great time, pulled the trigger a few times, and saw some country. The fog lifted. It was a beautiful afternoon, and a good warm-up for my trip to Nevada, which starts Thursday. Wish me luck. And if you're out there, we are talking to you about all that important stuff right now. You know, every week on all my social media platforms, I try to ask how your weekend went. And as I promised last week, I'm going to share some of my photos as well. I was up in another spot on that same trip, public ground, on an old, what I thought was an old wagon road. Fascinating from the bottom, looking up at that thing. You don't know what it is. Ramparts, holding, a retaining wall, who knows? Turns out it's probably the old army road that got down to the ferry, which crossed over the bridge. Well, no, crossed over the river that's now crossed over by a bridge. Anyway, fascinating stuff. That's what that picture is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram right now. And maybe you had as good a time as I did exploring some of the history while I was hunting. Taylor Johnson, hey, I feel for you. Taylor says, hard hunting in Iowa this past weekend. Weather's been too nice. So the pheasants are running wild. Although it looks like you're, from the picture, I can't hardly tell. It might be a red setter. It might be a Irish red setter. It might be, oh, heck, I can't tell. Send me a close-up, Taylor, but it looks good. Solid point, beautiful 12 o'clock tail, like that. Kyle Stein did his bit for perpetuating the sport. He took his nephew for a pheasant hunt, and it looks like everybody had a good time. The kid's holding at least 2, maybe 3 birds. 3 birds, and there's a beautiful-looking ugly dog right at his feet. Good job, everybody, and keep up the good work, Kyle. Michael Gill did something I've done a couple times and hope never to do again. He hunted Sovie's Island. That's out by Portland, Oregon, by the way. You get in line in your rig, you wait all night, you draw a chip or 2, and that sends you to the blinds. He got blind number 198 and 168. So he went home and took a nap, then went back and shot a couple gadwalls and widgeon. Well, it's better than none. And it looks like the weather, well, for a duck hunt, maybe was too good. From the picture, at least. Yeah, you can have it. Yeah. James Falconer. What a great name for a bird hunter, by the way. And do you do that, James? I know you do other things, including you took a 10-year-old on his very first pheasant hunt, and he was successful too. So good on you both. Keep up the good work. Mike Sims is our last report for the weekend that just ended. Mike didn't put any words to what may as well be a magazine cover photo. 2 long-tailed, short-haired critters. No, just Josh and you, Mike. They're beautiful pointers, flanking a little brush row, I'll call it. It looks like down in Florida or someplace like that, because the dogs are solid, and Mike is walking in to kick a bird out of what I think is some sawgrass palmetto. You tell me, Mike. I'd love to know where you were. It looks like a place I've been to make a show or 2 in years past down there in Florida, maybe somewhere like that. Glad you're all having a good time. Can you believe it is December 1st? All right. We'll get to our Christmas gift suggestions in just a moment. First, the Upland Nation podcast, brought to you in part by Sage and Breaker Gun Care products, crafted at the highest caliber. Thank you, Fred, for your support in the last year. Appreciate it. They got a whole bunch of new stuff there. I'm going to talk about a little bit of it in my Christmas gift list, but there's some new products, a parts tray, some gun grease, and, well, I'll leave the rest for as we get into the gifting part. And, again, prompted by an email from another friend, also check out my dog energy bar at dogenergybar.com. If your dog is starting to flag on the second day of a trip, or later in the first day, good, high-quality fat is the way to keep him firing on all 8 cylinders. Learn more about the nutrition, the theory, the application, and why I use it every day. dogenergybar.com.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you, Santa Claus, and same back at ya. And to everybody else who is looking ahead. Of course, yesterday was Cyber Monday. And if that didn't remind you that it was time to start getting, checking your list twice, find out who's naughty and who's nice, then I don't know what would. But anyway, let's just jump right in. These are things that not only do I love because they're clever or they're useful, but I use them all. And I guess if you're looking for Christmas gift ideas for anybody in the hunting world, 4-legged or 2-legged, they would probably be welcome under any Christmas tree, or under, hell, for that matter, under any Hanukah menorah, or whatever else you celebrate out there. They're fantastic gifts to buy for your friends, your dog, or even for yourself. And if you're like me, you might ask your spouse to listen to this podcast, and then maybe she'll get some new ideas as well. All right, let's see what's in this first box here. Oh, yeah, a GPS collar. Now, there are a whole bunch on the market, depending on what you're looking for. If you want to use your own phone to follow and track your dog and train your dog, many of them will do that. I love that aspect of some. But however you prefer to use a GPS collar, if you value your dog, what you've put into him, what he does for you on a day-to-day basis, then invest in a GPS collar. Even the less expensive versions that are coming out these days will do exactly what you need done most of the time. I don't use mine for much other than to know which direction he's headed and how far away he is so that I can either bring him back, change his direction, or go after him because he's locked up on point. All of those things are important, and if you consider the alternative, and I hope you haven't had to live it yet, it's sure cheaper and less anxiety prone than losing a dog, even for a few hours. And over the weekend, I heard that story not once, but twice. So invest in a GPS collar, even if that means you have to forego, I don't know, some of the other, less practical gifts that you might be getting. Yeah, there were 2 or 3 times over the weekend when one or the other of my hunting partners was scratching his head and wondering where his dog was. And luckily, he did. In fact, on one dog, he had 2 collars, but I'll tell you about that another day. But for right now, let me say this, that he celebrated the season, if you will, by knowing exactly where his dog was. And it helped us a couple times on point. So saved us a little bit of walking and probably got there, 10 minutes sooner than we would have if we'd just been searching for him. So invest in a GPS collar. Spend the money, bite the bullet, save your bottles and cans for one if you need to. But wouldn't that be a great thing to put under the tree for you and for your dog? And also this weekend, I was reminded of why I carry so many of them. There's one in the glove box. There's one in the center console. There's one around my neck on every hunt and training session. And it's the only reason probably I can still talk today, and that's because I whistle trained my dog, and I don't have to yell to find him. And I don't care. I used to sing opera. Not for profit, but for fun, because we had to at music school. But anyway, I know what a sore throat feels like, believe me. Okay, no comments about the people who were listening to me. They know what sore ears sound like. I understand that. But listen, save your voice for the campfire discussion and the debrief after the hunt. Invest in a whistle. Train your dog a couple basic commands with your whistle. Keep it handy, and you will always, always be able to criticize your hunting partner's shooting at the end of the day. All right, again, tried and true over and over and over again, and I see it every day when I'm out in what we call the Great Basin, the real Wild West. Every single cowboy, buckaroo, vaquero, depends where you are, what you call them. Everybody who works a horseback also wears a bandana. Now, not those cheesy 7-Eleven cotton versions that you can barely get around your neck and tie a square knot in, but the big feed store / Western store silk versions. They do all sorts of things for you. Yeah, they're a little spendy, but they are worth the investment. You can probably find a real silk bandana for $20-25. You probably spend more than that on most of the other stuff I'm going to talk about today, but that's that we'll get into that later. But a silk bandana does so many things for you. Number one, you look dashing, and you can stay warm. I've heard it said more than once that a silk bandana around your neck will keep you as warm as another layer on your torso, and I believe it. And I find myself using it to adjust a lot of the temperature needs I have over the course of a day. I'll start with it big and loose around my neck to keep my whole neck warm. And then I'll tighten it up a little bit when it starts warming up outside. And then I'll loosen it and just hang it by one knot. And then I'll take it off and use it for any number of other things, from pot holders in camp to a sweatband, you name it. A good silk bandana will be one of those things you'll slap your forehead about and wish you had given yourself or had gotten as a gift years, hunting season after hunting season ago. Mark my words. All right. Gun care, at the end of the day, it could be a process, and if it rained or snowed that day, maybe it should be, but most of the time, if you talk to guys about this kind of stuff, and we had a great discussion with John Fournier of Pacific Sporting Arms a few weeks back, he says, you don't really need to get too serious about your gun cleaning until the end of the season unless something really bad happens. But I do like to keep my barrels clean, and one way to do that is with the boar snake from Sage and Breaker. Now, there are others out there in the market. I like Fred Boehm's version at Sage and Breaker because he puts a lot of thought into it. It is a quality product. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Sage and Breaker and just search for the boar snake. It's one of those easy to use, simple to carry products that will, in one pull of the lanyard on the end, will clean your shotgun barrels. It works. It's a fantastic gift item. And if you don't have one yet, well, you might want to consider having one. Your shotgun will thank you. I can guarantee you'll be passing it around at the end of the day to everybody else you hunted with. And that might be a gift enough for some of those guys, especially the ones who shoot faster than you. Let's see what's in this box. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've had 5 German wirehead pointers, and when they're puppies, you expect them to be chewing a lot. Flick's 3 years old, and he's still chewing a lot. You've been there. I've been there. We have a lot of dog toys, or I guess I'd call them pieces of dog toys, still laying around. Luckily for me, knocking wood, he doesn't swallow any of them, but he leaves the pieces all around, whether they're plush toys or anything else. I've been through everything from the so-called rawhide bones, which we'll never touch again, to the big cow femur knuckles, to the Kong balls with the little hiding holes for treats and all of that. And only one of these has survived the trial by wire hair. It's called Gonut. Yeah, it's spelled like donut with a G, Goughnut. And you can find them at gonuts.com. Get it? Play on words and then a play on words. Yeah. The one I like is it's shaped like a donut, a little bit bigger, and you can get them in various sizes. The bigger, the better as far as I'm concerned, because then they won't get them caught in their mouth. You can do that. It's a long story. But if you've ever worried about what your dog swallowed from from what's left of that chew toy you just found, Go-Nuts are the way to go. Pardon the pun. They aren't flavored. They don't have funny faces or a squeaker, but they are virtually indestructible. So much so that the Gonut folks, if your dog can get that thing taken apart, we'll send you a free replacement. They're color-coded, so you can get what you think, but the black ones are basically the bomb-proof versions. I think they're made with kryptonite. But whatever they are, it may well be the best gift you ever give your dog outside of a hunting trip. So, if your dog's got a stocking hung on the mantle with care, think about giving him a Gonut. Again, you can find them at gonuts.com, Goughnut, gonuts.com. Actually, they're at a lot of local retailers now, and that reminds me. My wife is in retail. Maybe you're in the retail business or you patronize local retailers. It's really important this time of year. Black Friday is really called Black Friday because most of us in that world lose money until the end of Friday, because that's when the cash actually catches up with the expenses we've incurred all year. Keep that in mind and help your local businesses. Shop local, shop small. If there's a locally owned small business that carries this stuff, start there. And yes, I know it used to be in the old days, you'd pay more at a lot of those places. Number one, it's worth it because that money stays in your community. Number two, most of them are glad to entertain the notion of matching an online price. And if it's anything that needs expertise, follow-up service, or a real warranty, you're going to get that from a local business much easier. Please do that. There, off my soapbox again, and back to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Yeah, it's Christmas time, and the stockings have been hung with care. We'll talk about some of that down the road, but first off, let's talk about what you put your stockings in. Yeah, I confess, if there was a 12-step program, I'd probably be the poster boy. I own more than 26 pairs of boots, last count. Most of them I get from manufacturers, hoping I'll wear them on TV, and some I do and some I don't. I actually do wear the Mindel, formerly known as Perfect boots, formerly from Cabela's, and they're now available at Mindel USA, and they're now called Comfort Fit Hunter. I've got 4 pair. I rotate through them just like I rotate through all sorts of other things, fly rods, shotguns, and puppies for that matter. I always have 2 really good pair at the same time because, well, I left one in the trailer when I went this weekend for one day here and a one day there, for example. So they fit my feet perfectly. They're snug enough. They are protective enough for the lava rock that we hunt on a lot of times over here. They're made out of leather. Every bit of them is leather except the soles. So when you're bumping up against a boulder or you're twisting your ankles, you've got a lot of support in there. They are the ultimate chucker hunting boot, and unless you do all of your hunting on level ground in some wonderful warm place like Florida, well, anyway, consider the Mindel Comfort Fit Hunter. You can find them at many of the high-quality local shoe retailers and sporting goods stores, and you can find that list at MindelUSA.com. Now, some people have funny feet, and I do, and that's why I like them. They are, the last. I think, the mold that they make these shoes around, the last for that model is perfect for me, and I can't find that very often. I do have another pair from Danner that I like almost as much, and so fair enough. But I have used the Mindel version of this for many years, and it's still my go-to boot. Mindel, let me just recap it one more time. Comfort Fit Hunter, and that's Mindel, MeindLUSA.com is where you start. Now, Herr Mindel, if you're listening out there and you want to send me a couple more pair, feel free. Speaking of hanging our stockings with care, the ones you're not hanging but you're wearing instead, yeah. These I've only been given 1 pair of. I own a dozen pair of the Darn Tough Mountaineering Extra Cushion socks. Yeah, Mr. Darn Tough, feel free to send me a few more. And the reason I own so many is because they're my go-to socks. Unless I'm working out, those socks are always on my feet. They are, they live up to their name. Maybe you're the same way. And believe me, I've learned this the hard way. I wear them now, even when I'm, dressed up, if you will. 14 miles at the SHOT Show. Every day you're walking up and down those aisles. Well, I did it field test, I guess I'll call it, one day, and put on some other socks, wore them all day. By the end of the day, I was limping. It was that bad. The day after that, I put on my darn tough mountaineering extra cushion socks, and it was as if I was wearing running shoes. They hug your calf all day. They've got mainly made out of merino wool with some nylon and lycra spandex. They're machine washable and dryable. They don't shrink. They got lots of cushioning. They stay up. They don't fall apart. That's why I own so many pairs for so long. Yeah. Before you hang anything up with care, or if you're going to overstuff the stockings that are hanging on your mantle, you probably ought to go to Darn Tough. And again, I find them at my local Serious boot store. So start there, shop local, see what you can find in Mindle and in Darn Tough. They're simple and they are bomb-proof.
Ho, 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 ho.
All right, we're just getting warmed up. We've got a lot more Christmas gift ideas, as well as some guerrilla tactics for your next public land hunt. It's all coming up right here at the Upland Nation podcast. First, a couple messages. I was reminded yet once again, watching one of the older dogs that I hunted with over the weekend, and how he slowed as the day went on. Now, he was old anyways, and I understand all of that, so I'm not going to hold it against one of my hunting partners. But we did suggest that diet could have something to do with stamina, and if you follow Dr. Tim Hunt, veterinarian, sled dog racer, and dog food developer, follow him at drtims.com, Dr. Tim's. You'll learn how important it is to provide quality fat in your dog's diet. Now, most of Dr. Tim's formulations use chicken fat as the main source of fat due to its high palatability. Yeah, it tastes great. And the fatty acid profile. All those important things for a dog's metabolism and long-term stamina come from high-quality ingredients, including the fat. Chicken fat in this case. Tocopherols are used to prevent spoilage of the chicken fat, but they're also forms of vitamin E that are naturally occurring. So, both the chicken fat and natural tocopherols are from the U.S., and you can trace all the products and all the ingredients. It's all at drtims.com. And don't forget, just use the Upland Nation discount code at checkout, and you'll get 30% off your first order. It's all at drtims.com. Did you hear me now? Well, if you did, your ears are still functioning well, and luckily so are mine. Yesterday. No, it was the day before yesterday. Okay, it might have rattled my brain, but it didn't rattle my eardrums. We were pretty close together when his dog went on point, and mine came around from the other side, went on point on the other side of that chucker covey. Birds got up. We were pretty close together, but I was protected from that close shot by my hunting partner. No, I didn't hit anything, but neither did he. But I was protected by ESP, electronic earplugs. Electronic Shooters Protection. Learn more at espamerica.com. I wear them in the field because I can still hear the dog's beeper if I'm using one. I can still hear my buddy's bad jokes. And when someone shoots, I don't have to suffer. They stay in when you're climbing, running, chasing a dog because they're custom fit, 30-day money-back trial. Get fitted locally. Just go to the dealer locator page at espamerica.com and find somebody right in your own hometown that will do all the custom fitting for you at no additional charge.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas.
Oh, yeah. And same back at you, Santa Claus. Yeah, I hope you're I hope you're fueling well for your long night. It's coming right up. And that's the topic this week on the Handle It segment, where you learned the easy way because I did not. It seems like I do obsess about diet for dogs and feeding strategies for all sorts of reasons. But let me just tell you, this was just prompted by an email from a good friend of mine from way back, who's really worried about his young dog and what's happening to her. She's basically wasting away because she's not eating. Now, this is a problem for all of us at one point or another. Here's the fundamental situation at our house, similar to yours maybe. I don't feed the morning of a hunt for a whole bunch of reasons. I've lectured you on that, so I won't bore you with the details. But if you're on a long trip, say 3, 4, 5, 10 days, over the course of time, your dog's calorie deficit is dramatic because you literally cannot fit enough food into a dog at night to make up for skipping breakfast. So you have to get the food in that you can as efficiently as possible, and you have to ensure that the dog will actually eat. Now, Flick is better than most, but in Randy's situation, for example, and even Flick's sometimes, the dogs are so beat at the end of the day, the last thing they want to do is lift up their head, stand on their feet, and try and ingest what is, usually a pretty darn good food. Well, I've got a whole bunch of tricks that work once in a while for me, and maybe you need a few of those too. And some of these I've learned myself, others I've learned from other pro trainers who face the same thing, and other hardcore hunters who are out there season long trying to keep their dog fueled. Here's a few that have worked for me and for others that you might try if your dog is a hard keeper and he doesn't quite want to ingest the usual ration at the usual time. I'll take canned dog food, and for some reason, the cans of the little dog food, the ones, the cute little, bait dogs, I call them on the cover. You can get those in smaller sizes, and that I like as well. There's no waste. But put that canned food under his regular food, or mix it in really well and see if the dog will eat that. Usually the fish-based canned foods are smellier, and they seem to have more appeal to a dog at the end of the day. I use a product called Gainer from Elements. You can learn more about them at Elements Nutrition. Just Google it. It's a powder you can sprinkle on your dog food that adds calories. It's mainly powdered fat, and it is extremely palatable to a dog. You mix it with water. You put the whole thing in there, mix it with water. Sometimes warm water alone will be enough to get your dog to eat what he wouldn't eat if it was dry. Some of the other magic ingredients I've used to keep my dogs eating when they are unmotivated to eat: cottage cheese, cooked eggs, if you got a microwave handy, raw eggs will sometimes work, hand feeding if you're desperate. And yes, it's happened. Not 2 weeks ago, I was down in northwest Nevada, and Flick was just so beat, it was a 31-mile day for him, that I ended up having to hold that food in my hand and hold it right underneath his head as it was slumped over and he was laying on the couch in the travel trailer. It did work. Don't ask me about the psychology. I was just grateful to do it. Fed him his whole ration that way. Canned gravy or broth, but be careful. Onions are in a lot of those, and onions are generally not a good idea to give to a dog. Hey, if you got any better ideas, I'd love to hear them, not only for me, but for Randy and for all the other folks who are concerned about their dog's calorie intake. So let's talk on Facebook about what you're using. I hope my suggestions helped you. It's a gift that keeps on giving, whether it's Christmas or any other time of year. So good luck on that. All right. Welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. We're talking about Christmas gifts for you and the people and animals that are important to you. So let's get back into it. What's in this box over here? I should have known it was big. Yeah. I remember meeting Mr. Pete, the inventor of the Pete shoe dryer many years ago at a SHOT Show. I bowed down to him and thanked him from the very bottom of my heart for a gift that is used all year round, but particularly this time of year. I'm wearing warm, toasty boots on every hunt because I use a Pete shoe dryer no matter where I go. You know, your feet sweat about a cup of water a day. Yuck. On top of the sweat, there's the cold, and there's the shoes, well, in our case, boots, that are soaked through, whether it's from wading in a stream to get across to that quail holding spot or snow. A Pete shoe dryer of one sort or another will be the gift that you will be glad you bought yourself, or particularly glad if somebody bought for you. There is nothing. You know how you get into your bed at night if you have an electric blanket. I turn mine up to 9, get in, and then turn it down. Well, that's how your feet will feel. If your feet had a voice, they would sigh when they put on those nice warm boots in the morning. And they're safely dried because the little tiny bit of heat that comes up in a Pete shoe dryer is just the right amount. That's why so many boot and shoe companies endorse the product. There's a whole bunch of varieties. There's a kind you can plug into the wall. There's the kind you can slip into your boots, the kind that you stand your boots up on. And then there's a propane-fueled version. So if you're off-grid, you can still use... Anyway, go to your local sporting goods store and check out the variety of Pete shoe dryers, and believe me, you'll be thanking me every morning of every hunt. All right, let's take a little trip over to the fireplace. Take a look at those very nicely made stockings that are hanging. They were hung with care at our house. And yes, we do. We have a stocking for every dog and every damn cat, too. And the reason is they're such an integral part of our lives, and I'm sure they are for you too. So don't forget them in the gift giving. Just be careful about the kind of treats you're giving. But I'm not going to lecture you about that. Let's take a look at some of the things I like to stuff into stockings for me and my hunting buddies. First off, another thing I obsess about. Pad care for my dog. Flick has gone all season, and let's see, that means almost 3 months now, all season, and I'm not, again, knocking wood as I say it, his pads have performed stellarly, to coin a word, all season. No cuts, no scrapes, no peeling, no nothing, thanks to Happy Jack Pad Coat. That's P-A-D space coat, K-O-T-E. Available at all sorts of feed stores, Tractor Supply, guys like that. And then you can always find dealers at happyjackinc.com. And yes, they do sponsor this podcast and many other things I do. But thank you, Joe. Thank you, Manning. Thank you, Joe's dad, who invented this pad coat. It's an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure. You just apply that to your dog's pads. I do it all season. I take it back. I do it all year once a week. I do it every morning of a hunt. It's easy to put on, and it protects your dog's pads by keeping them supple. Yeah, supple. That's the idea there. Happy Jack Pad Coat comes in a little jar, if you will, a little bottle. Easy to put in the stocking, easy to put on your dog's feet. All right, this one might weigh down anything but a well-built, darn tough stocking, but it is probably the handiest thing I keep in my truck, and that's a tie-out stake. You can find those everywhere. The best ones are the kind you can use a sledgehammer on and can take the multiple swats that a sledgehammer will deliver to get it into the ground, but find a high-quality tie-out stake. Beyond the basics of being able to slam that thing into the ground, to attach a dog to it that won't go anywhere and is safe while you turn your back to get the food ready or the water replenished or anything else. There are so many other places you will find a use for it, at a hunt test, training day. You're stopped to air your dogs. No pro would go without a tie-out stake or a whole chain gang, which is basically a giant tie-out stake. Multiple uses. Mine have a detachable chain so that once in a while I can attach it to other things without having to pound something into the ground and break somebody else's irrigation pipe. Don't ask why I know that. It's safety and convenience for your dog, peace of mind, and it basically frees up your hands to do all the other chores. Don't ever leave a dog out on one unsupervised, but there are lots of places you'll find a tie-out stake. In fact, I've gotten them for Christmas. Thank you, honey. Appreciate that. And if you ever want to give me another one, feel free. Tie-out stakes. You've seen it on TV in action, and why? I'm thinking of a particular hunt in western Kansas where I bent over to pick up a dead pheasant from one of my dogs, and out falls my GPS transmitter. Well, it didn't end up in the drink, which is where we were on that water retrieve, and the reason is it was attached to my vest by one of those key coil things, you know, the plastic springy things. Everything that I value that could possibly get lost when I'm rolling under a barbed wire fence, or when I'm leaning over to pick something up, or when I'm running after a dog that's on point and I'm 250 yards away, it all stays attached because I have a lanyard, a key coil, or some other way of attaching that stuff to me. Whistles, transmitters, cameras, cell phones, you name it. Attach it to yourself or your vest, and you will never lose it. Those are the kind of things you can find at every locally owned hardware store, for example. A lot of variety stores will have those. Get the most heavy-duty versions you can. Look for a spot on your vest to attach the other end, and believe me, you will be glad you did. Ho, ho, and ho. Finally, unfortunately, I was reminded again recently about the perils of leg cramps. And you don't have to be an old geezer, but if you're climbing a lot or you're working out a lot, the goblet squat is my nemesis, for example. You want Noon hydration tablets. N-U-U-N. Remember the old Alka-Seltzer? You drop those tablets, or for some of you, you might remember the Effordent tablets you drop into the glass of water. Well, it's the same basic idea. You buy yourself a tube of these, you drop one in water. I put them in my water bottles on a hunt, and they will replenish all of the, what do they call them? The electrolytes in your body that you sweat out or exhale out while you're hunting or doing anything else for that matter. Noon, N-U-U-N hydration tablets. They will minimize your muscle fatigue, and that is what generally causes those midnight leg cramps. Now, I do a bunch of other things. Someday I'll talk about all of those things because more and more people seem to be facing this problem. But hydrating by replacing electrolytes is the good first step. And I start mine first thing in the morning. I have a glass of that stuff right next to my coffee, and I'll alternate them just to stay ahead of the curve. One night, somewhere down the road, in the middle of it, on a hunt, you will thank me. Ho and ho. Yeah, well, that wraps up the Christmas gifting portion of the Upland Nation podcast, but we got so much more to go, so much more. I've still got my advice on navigating hard-hit hunting areas, and the reader survey that I talked about earlier. So stick around and learn a little bit more about stuff that might be of real value to you every day in the field. Right now, though, first off, the reader poll, sponsored by Happy Jack Dog Care. They've got remedies for everything from skin, coat, parasites, internal and external, fleas and ticks and all that other stuff. Learn more about them and find a local dealer at happyjackinc.com. 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 They bring you the Upland Nation Index survey today and every one of our Upland Nation Insights surveys weekly from the newsletter. And if you're not getting the newsletter, please do sign up. Hopefully there's something in there that's of interest to you. And to do that, just go to findbirdhuntingspots.com and it's right there at the top. You might have to scroll down a little depending on how you're using it, but sign up and get on the mailing list. All right, so the big question every year I ask in the Upland Nation Index survey is, what are the 3 most important issues facing upland hunting in the next 5 years? Yeah, okay. You got the first one, I'm sure. 72% of you said access and availability of public hunting ground. And I can't agree more. That's why we do these things. That's why I'm doing the, This Land is Your Land segment all the time. In addition to that, though, there is great concern amongst you about the mismanagement of our current public land and habitat. 50% of you say it's not being handled in the right way. And I'll tell you, there are great bureaucrats out there, and then there are some less than great bureaucrats out there. So if you find one and they're doing a good job managing where you hunt, hey, give them a call, send them an email, because yes, success breeds success, especially when it comes to the local level. Third on the list, recruitment of new hunters, and you can't argue that one. We're aging, admit it. Don't worry about it, but take a new hunter whenever you can. All right, a few more messages, and then on to my This Land is Your Land segment. So hold tight as we talk about gunner.com. Yep. In addition to dog crates or kennels, depending on what you call them, they've got all sorts of new stuff out there, from all-weather kits to nameplates to tie-down straps, crate fans. Learn all about the newest stuff, including their food bin, which probably could hold a nuclear bomb inside. It's all at gunner.com, just like it sounds. Check into the financing, the free delivery, try the vehicle fit guide, and see what you can find there. Most of it won't fit into a stocking, but it will certainly fit under your tree. Some of those trees might have to be a little bit big, but that's okay too. There's the signal for This Land is Your Land. Ho, ho. Here's my gift to you. I learned this first from Jim Zumbo. Jim Zumbo, very well-known big game hunter, wrote a column for Outdoor Life magazine for decades. Friend of mine. Had him on my Outdoor Life radio show back in the day, and I said, Jim, how do we hunt places that are very popular? How do we find animals in places that are pressured? And he says, use that as a strategy. And I've done that many times. In fact, about a weekend ago, I did the same thing. Figure out where the other hunters are and where they're going to push the animals. It works for elk, it works for deer, and it works for birds too. Sit where the others push the animals. In his case, sitting, because he's a big game hunter. I adopted his strategy to fishing years and years ago. I fish a particularly popular trout stream, and same thing happens there. By the time I get there and get my waders on, somebody else has already walked through all the good spots. But I know where they pushed the fish that they didn't catch. So I will follow them through some of those holes and fish the edges, or I'll fish the fronts of the rocks or whatever. Do the same thing with your bird hunting. Last weekend I pulled in when another truck was pulling out. I made an educated guess as to where they went and why, and went to the spots where those birds might have flown to. Some of them were far away, some of them weren't, but I hunted the spots where I thought the birds had escaped to. The bonus was the covey was broke up, and I got to hunt singles with Flick. And I don't know about you, but whether it's chukars or quail, or probably huns too, although I haven't hunted enough of them to track it, the singles hold much better for a pointing dog. So use that strategy the next time you're at one of those spots that may have been hammered by somebody else recently. Good luck to you. There's my gift to you. I hope that this whole Christmas spirit is coming through in your own words and deeds as well. All right. We're brought to you in part here at the Upland Nation Podcast by ESPAmerica.com, electronic shooters protection. Yes, electronic earplugs of various sorts, prices, and styles, all custom fit and all protecting those precious listening devices you have been born with. Learn more at ESPAmerica.com. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, or whatever else you decide to celebrate. Festivus? Got to be a Seinfeld fan to know what I'm talking about there. Whatever it is, I want to thank you. Your gift to me is your attention, and I do appreciate it every week, all year round. But particularly during the holidays, I know you got a lot of other things to do, so thank you so much for listening. If you do enjoy it, please do me a big favor. Your gift to me would be a great rating or review, particularly at Apple Podcasts. So please do that for me, if you will. You don't have to be an Apple Podcast subscriber. Just go there and tell people what you think about the Upland Nation Podcast. And then talk to me any day at the Wing Shooting USA or the Upland Nation Facebook pages. It's all open, and we're glad to talk about everything from dog food and dog feeding to hunting new spots. That'll be a fine gift as well. I hope your holiday season is going well. And, of course, every day is a holiday when you're in the field with your dog, so celebrate that as well. I'll leave you with this one from Gilda Radner. I know I'm OG when I talk about her. Thank you, Gilda, for making us laugh back in the days when Saturday Night Live was actually worth staying up for. Gilda says, I think dogs are the role model for being alive. I agree, and I'm sure you do too. Thank you all for listening. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation Podcast. I'll see you in the field.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas.